Hey, this is Brent Jensen. You're listening to No Sleep Till Sudbury, the show where we talk about the music that makes your skin vibrate. The show is brought to you by Pariah Pickups. What you want, what you need, what you love. Check them out at pariahpickups.com. The show is also brought to you by Storyfora, the digital content agency providing podcast production, promotional video, and lots more. For more information, go to Storyfora, that's Phora, storyfora.com. And lastly, don't forget to check out Thursday Night Record Club on the Brent Jensen Music YouTube channel. We're doing some cool stuff over there too. All right, what you were about to hear is the audio version of the first of two live No Sleep Till Sudbury episodes that Rik Emmett and I recorded at Black Bellows in Collingwood, Ontario about 2 months ago. The episodes were also captured on video, and the first one should be up on the Brent Jensen Music page in a couple of days. Now, this was definitely a first for the show, and for me to do it with Rik was just incredible. It was a fantastic night, one I'll remember for a very long time. Here it is. All right, Collingwood. How's it going? How's everybody doing? Good. All right. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Brent Jensen. I'm the host of No Sleep Till Sudbury, and we've got a really great night planned here. I'm really excited about it. You know, back in the day, we used to have so many rock stars, right? But times are different now, so we really have to cherish the evergreen guys and the girls that are still around. You know, we don't get to experience them much anymore, but the good news is that tonight's different. Tonight we get to experience a true, legitimate musical icon. And not only do we get to experience him, we actually get to interact with him, and we might get to know him a little bit better as a result of what we've done tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome musical icon, Mr. Rik Emmett, everybody. Come on up here. Let's kick it off by talking about your latest project, 10 Telecaster Tales. So this is a book.
Thank you, sir.
This is a record. It's not yet a movie, as far as I know. But take us through, Rik.
Well, I designed a guitar. I have a friend that runs a pickups company in Mississauga named Mike Smitty Smith. And he had these pickups that they were in a couple of guitars of mine, and I really liked them. And he's always been sort of a Telecaster guy. You know what a Telecaster is? This shape, right? So then we started talking about getting one custom made. So this guitar, this is a fairly specific kind of design, but it was really something to be having his pickups on it. And so that was what started it. And then while it was being built, I was writing things. I was thinking, geez, it might be nice if I kind of kept everything focused so that I could play them all on this guitar when I finally get it. So that was kind of how it started. And of course, I had a publishing deal with ECW Press where I had put out a book of poetry, and then I had put out my memoir with them. And the editor there, my guy is Michael Holmes, and he's a guitar player kind of guy. He's married to M. Greiner, by the way. I don't know if you know, she's a singer, very, very good musician in her own right, and I think he's playing in her band sometimes now. Anyways, so I went to Holmes. I got this idea. Yeah. Hey, maybe I could write a book about writing the guitar pieces, about designing the guitar, about what the Telecaster meant to the history of guitar. So I went to Holmes. I said, what do you think? I pitched him, and he went, this is a great idea. We'd love to do it. I said, well, you know how when I did a book of poetry and I dangled the carrot of the memoir in order to get a 2-book deal? I said, I got another book of poetry. So you can only have the guitar book if you'll give me another book of poetry. Now, the reason I do this, folks, is because as an artist, I like writing poetry, but you can't make money publishing poetry books. Nobody buys them. Seriously, how many of you, any of you buy a poetry book in the last 3 years? Anybody? So there you go. There's your demographic.
Was it a Rik Emmett poetry book by chance? Oh.
Bob Dylan lyrics. Okay, yeah.
Close.
So not really poetry, you know. Although he's a poetic writer. Anyhow, so that was the thing. And so the deal was cooked, and I was going to be putting out the book. And there's the answer to your question.
Thank you. Now, there is also an accompanying record. I think we're going to do a couple of those tunes tonight if we're lucky.
Yeah. Be nice to me. Be really
has
nice
anybody
to
heard
me.
this record yet? No?
Great.
Not yet?
Okay.
I have a request. My request is funky scratching.
You want me to start right away?
Can you do it?
I'm going to play right away.
It's up to you.
Man, okay, geez.
Do we want to hear Rick play a little bit?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, you should know that I kind of expected a PA that would have a PA and then monitors, but we only have these little tiny speakers, so I can only sort of hear myself sideways. Okay, so you want a little preamble for this?
Please.
Now, here's the thing about preambles tonight. I wrote a book, and it's 200 pages. So if the preambles for the songs get a little long, just go, Rick, just play. Okay, because it might get a little long. But so here's the setup for this one. When I was a kid, first good guitar I ever bought was a Fender Telecaster. I was in high school and playing football, and I wrecked my knee, and the dreams of being an athlete were gone. And I had, sang in the choirs and played violin in the orchestra and had guitars and was in basement bands and stuff. And I thought, well, maybe, I don't want to have to work for a living. I want to play. And if I can't play sports, then I'm going to play music. So I went and got my union card and got a Fender Telecaster, a Fender amp, and I started playing in things like Jewish wedding bands and bar mitzvah bands, a suit, and the Tele was first good. Now, in Toronto, when I grew up, and we're talking high school was 66 through 71, 72, there was a guy named Dominic Troiano, and he was the guy. Before there were guitar heroes, he was one in the Toronto scene, and he was a Tele guy. And the reason he was a kind of a guitar hero was because he had based himself on Robbie Robertson, who had been the guitar player in Ronnie Hawkins' band in the bars on Yonge Street. And Donnie used to go down and go to the matinees at the Le Coq d'Or or, Friar's Tavern or wherever they were playing. I think in the end there was even the Hawk's Nest, like Ronnie opened his own bar. So the Tele begat the Tele, and then all the Toronto guys, it was like, oh, I got to get a Tele. Got to do like Donnie and bake it in my mother's oven. It was like all these stories about Teles that were legendary things. So I'm going to try and conjure a little bit of Robbie and a lot of Dominic, but it's mostly Rik Emmett, mining Rik Emmett, going back to the guitar player I kind of wanted to be in 1969, 1970, et cetera, et cetera. So this is called Funky Scratching.
No pick. You guys see that? Unbelievable. So I don't know if you folks know this, but Rik has acrylic nails. Yeah.
I go to Beauty Nails. Yeah, Tony does them. And I had to go back. Actually, I had one where I didn't have enough width on my thumb, so I went back a couple of days ago and just had them add a little on the side.
Wow. 5 guitar picks right there for you.
Yeah, they're good too. They're
extra strong.
they really are. Yeah. You can crack walnuts with them.
All right. From 10 Telecaster Tales, can we maybe hear another one? Is it too soon to ask for another?
Oh no, whatever you like.
So you get a
Which
second,
one do you want?
You get a second to talk about this one. It's Burleytown. This is about Burlington, I think.
Yeah, it was originally called Burleytown Groove,
Yeah.
and it's a reggae thing.
Can you say it in that voice?
Burleytown Groove.
There it is.
That's. Yeah, I always like reggae because it has this sort of universal kind of rhythm to it, and I mean all the stuff. It's really it all gets born out of rhythm. As I'm writing the pieces, it's when rhythm finally speaks to me in a through line kind of way, then I know, okay, I've got something I can really build here. But there's a spiritual element to reggae that I kind of like. Now, this one started, it was kind of dark, and I had to work my way to finding the major chorus that happens in it. But it was kind of dark. Now, and there'll be stuff that will remind some of you, if you know Triumph music, you'll go, oh, that reminds me of Fight the Good Fight, which was a reggae-ish kind of a rock song way back in the day. So when I was writing the stuff, I was freely mining my own past.
Does anybody in here know Triumph music at all?
Okay, so Burleytown Groove. Let's see if I can dial this one up.
Well done. I want to change gears a little bit now, just for a minute, and I want to go back to talking about that. Are you okay?
I'm hot. Aren't you hot? It's hot in here. You people are breathing too much.
You're doing all the work up here. Reinvention, poetry book. So a lot of people, that came out in 2021, I think. A lot of people didn't know about it, but it's a fantastic book of poetry. There's a passage in there that I really love called Four Stanzas. And the reason why I love it, and I want you to talk about this a little bit if you don't mind.
I don't mind. That's why I'm here.
It is kind of why you're here. There's a great metaphor about the seasons in describing the life cycle, starting with spring, ending in winter. And I read it, and I remember this. It shocked me. Like I was going through, and I told you this before.
Yeah.
And I got to the end, and I just kind of was jarred. And so because of the way that it ends, and it's like, in these days of technology and stimulus, it's quite a feat to be able to do that to somebody with text. So well done.
But I mean, that was the intention.
Yeah.
And the thing about poetry is it's often about heavier kinds of thinking, topics like death, so, and you can't really think about the four seasons and the cycling of things without also thinking about death. And, the older that I get, the more it comes up. Like in the Telecaster Tales, there's a thing, Winter Nocturne, which it's about death, or coming to terms with death. Because as we get older, like none of us are getting out of this alive, So, and you're trying to come to terms with it. So this was something that was about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to read it?
Do you mind?
I don't. I'm happy to do it because I have it right here in large print.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
I don't know if you folks, I don't know how many of you are my age, 71. So I had the surgery so that I can drive without my glasses. I can, I can see distance, but I can't see fuck all up close. So
family show.
I need these things. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Is it?
No, I don't care.
Oh, okay.
Does anybody care? I'm fine with it.
Okay. There are no children here, so. Okay. All right. So this is called Four Stanzas. The spring of youth brings searing awareness of infinities, the dawning of eternal mysteries, the promise of tomorrows that will reveal and enrich with flavors that explode as bold emotions test control. And then summer blooms immortal, full of cocky crowning glories, ever present, never-ending hours of delight accommodate siestas as the constellations align. Then autumn turns brown, fades green to rust. There's something in the air that smells of the soil, hints of death, calling, say your goodbyes, make peace, as realities gradually settle in. Then winter descends upon us. There's shrinkage in the bitter cold. Long, tenebrous nights begrudgingly yield to short, dull, gray days. The creaking in our limbs painfully reminds us of how little we have grown, how much remains unknown. And still, there is this longing for the turning of the wheel, the spin around the sun, orbits in the circles, in the circles, in the circles, in the...
Yeah. I love it.
Thank you.
Unorthodox, but amazing. And part of this whole theme is, getting to know Rik past, the person that we readily recognize him to be, the guitarist and singer of Triumph. Speaking of which, this book, who's got this book? Somebody's got this book. Yes, there it is. Lay It on the Line, again, takes us beyond the Rik Emmett that most of us recognize as the singer in Triumph. It was interesting to me because, when artists come out with these books, you think it's going to be this salacious tell-all about all the dirty things that happened in Triumph and that sort of thing. And there's Triumph material, but it's only one chapter. And I think it's actually called the Triumph chapter.
Yes.
Throughout the entire book, which I thought was really cool.
I mean, I had a life before Triumph, a lot of life, 22, 23 years of it. And then I had 13 years in it. Mm-hmm. And then I had a whole life after, a long, long time. I didn't talk to those guys for 20 years, There was a lot of story, my story, and it wasn't going to, my memoir is not going to be the story of Triumph. Although, of course, I know it's going to sell books. So there's a picture of me from the Triumph years on the cover. And the title, here's the thing about title. We're going through, talking about this with editors. And I'm bouncing titles. He goes, well, Rick, Bruce Springsteen has a memoir. You know what it's called, Rick? Born to Run, Rick. Pretty much you want a memoir, what was your biggest hit, Rick? I go, okay. And, of course, lay it on the line. It's a good title for a memoir.
Oh, it's perfect, yeah.
So that sort of satisfies a lot of the Triumph stuff without me necessarily having to go into... And, yeah, one chapter. And the reason is because... First of all, when I left the band, it was not happy. It was really, really ugly, and it was like divorce, and it was 20 years of unhappiness. So how much of that shit do I want to dredge up? It took me 20 years to finally go, okay, I want to forgive you guys. I want to make peace. Okay, you want to go into the Hall of Fame. Okay, I will show up. So we go through this process where they're my friends again, and I'm happy to have them back. And I go, shall I write stuff in my book that's going to fuck that up? I don't think so. I'm going to have to figure out a way. So I had a friend of mine, good friend of mine, back from high school days. He had been a member of provincial parliament and a member of federal parliament. And so he knew what it was like to stick your foot in your mouth. And I made him read it. And I said, read the Triumph chapter and tell me where I'm, going too far. And he said, yeah, this place, this place, this place, this place, this place, this place. So it's like, oh, so I rewrote it probably 10 or 11 times.
Wow, really?
Yeah. With him and a lawyer looking at it. Yeah, well,
How did it land with Gil and Mike later on?
I don't mean to sound disparaging or negative about them because I don't mean it that way. It can come off that way if that's the way you hear it, but they're not really readers, so they don't really read books, unless they felt like, oh, there's something in here that So Mike probably did. Mike probably read it, but would never really say anything unless there was something he was going to sue me over. He feels the same way I do. Like, let's not mess it or make it ugly. Let's just leave sleeping dogs and let's just be happy, shiny people. And in Gil's case, he's definitely not a reader, and he's way busy all the time with many, many projects. He had his daughter read it and then mark the pages where he was mentioned.
Seriously?
And then would be sitting at home after dinner having a scotch and say, read me the parts you've flagged. So it's all good.
Wow.
It's all good.
Now I'm curious, what did you want to call the book?
Oh, I had different, I can't remember the working titles. Like some of them were ridiculously long kinds of things, the working mind behind the blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like and then when I write, often what I do is it's kind of like diarrhea. It just kind of runs and you don't worry about it. You add it later. Okay. You go, yeah, well, this is nothing. This is nothing. Oh, this is something, So, yeah, the titles, I don't remember any of them specifically because once we decided on that, I went, yeah, fine, good, and I move on. I'm always constantly moving on.
Yeah. No, there's some great stories in there. You were a college professor for some time.
20 years.
There's a great story in there that I particularly liked about you dropping off your daughter and she was a teenager, I believe, for a date with a guy, and it was her first date with this guy. And you dropped her off and drove away, and you kind of got misty about it. She's married to that man today.
I have 2 grandchildren by those two.
Unbelievable.
It was the first steady boyfriend she ever had. And I drove away and went, I'm dead.
Did you want to read a little bit from that?
Sure. Why not? That's why we're here. That's why we wrote a script, Brent.
Script. There's no script. Just little helper notes.
Yeah, I know. So I got 2 pages here. You're going to have to hang with me. And I do think that this is apropos because we are now in a circumstance politically where, the United States and Canada, and we got an election coming, oh boy, so there's a lot of stuff in the air. And this is a section that I wrote about my own personal opinion about pessimism and optimism. And you should know this, that I tend to be very much on the pessimist side, even though I'm the guy that wrote, hold on to your dreams, fight the good fight, never surrender, artistically, I opt for optimism. But I'm a pessimist at heart. So this is me sort of talking about me. On pessimism and optimism, I choose to try and act out of love, not anger or fear. Some might say I'm a romantic. Sometimes I'm chided for being cynical, my wife. But I would say I remain a hopeful citizen of the planet, having the faith to act out of optimism, not my pessimism. When things get ugly, and they're getting ugly now, fear and anger raise my hackles, but in my creative work, I'll try to push back against fear-mongering, even when it gets inside my own head and heart. Isn't that a part of the good fight? On dark days, I'm a brother in the family of realists and pragmatists, trying not to degenerate into stoicism and cynicism, then descend into sarcasm and ironic pessimism. One step down into the right awaits misanthropy. Some people quite rightly deserve our fear and loathing, our distrust, and it requires strength of character to face hard truths, ugly reality. We then need even more strength to find a smile and sing a song for people who need it, to reassure us about life. I felt a sense of duty to seek an equilibrium in the music I offered to the world, because I thought there was an audience in need of it, and because I felt I owed it to them and to myself. I wrote songs and made music to try and make sense of my life, hoping it helped others do the same. My family often called me on my tendency to predict negative outcomes, looking for the petty smugness of being right when things turned out lousy. It certainly has truth in it, but it was also true that my coin had 2 sides, and I tried to balance my optimism and hope with what I considered to be healthy doses of realistic strategies for coping with bad outcomes. George Burns said that, quote, a pessimist is a man who feels bad when he feels good, because he's afraid he'll feel worse when he starts to feel even better. And I once wrote, only a fool takes a leap of faith on the strength of a butterfly's wing. I do leap. I am that kind of fool. I think it takes an even worse kind of fool to lose one's sense of delight in watching a baby smiling and gurgling and drooling, shrieking like a pterodactyl because her belly's full and the world's a soft blanket with a bunch of colorful toys. You bastard.
I'm gonna tell a little story. We do these shows at Rik's house, and the second time that I was at Rik's house, he played a song, and the song meant a lot to him, and he kind of got a little bit choked up. And we didn't really know each other that well. So it was the second time I was there. He excused himself, went to the bathroom, and I was like, oh God, like, what do I do? So he came back, and he sat down, and he looked me square in the eye, and he said, Jensen, I invite you to my house, and you make me cry. Why do I keep inviting you back?
It's true. And now look, I'm doing it in front of people. Shall I finish this? Yes. Life can be simple. Curmudgeons make it complex. Our babies need somebody to watch out for them. We do it with never-ending hope because babies can't do it for themselves yet. They need to learn about it, how to be strong, because optimism requires more wisdom, passion, and balance than pessimism.
Yeah. All right. I would like to hear one more song from 10 Telecaster Tills before we get into the Triumph stuff later.
Oh, no. Okay.
Can we do that? Can we do, how about Gee Whiz?
That's hard, though.
But you're Rik Emmett.
All right. The guitar players that I really love, Joe Pass is one of them, and I know that doesn't mean a lot to folks in this room necessarily, but Joe Pass is a guy that, you know, he's one of the best guitar players on the planet Earth, was. And at a certain point in time in my life, I had gone to college to study guitar, and jazz was the program at Humber College, and everybody was trying to learn how to play like this. But there was one guy in particular that I saw playing once at Roy Thompson Hall, Toronto, I think called the Guitar Giants or the Great Guitars or something. There was a guy named Marty Gross. And Marty was one of those guys from the 30s that played chords and sang songs that were like these great jazz ditties, you know. And so the song that I saw him do was something like, I know a chord for every note I sing. Like that. And I went, okay, I got to learn how to do that. I want to do that. And I once wrote a song called Taste of Steel that went, it went, oh, when this whole wide world around you gets unreal, and that woman let you feel, you better make time for a genuine taste of steel. And I love that shit. And there's a story in 10 Telecaster Tales where when I wrote that song, I had a manager at the time, Ross Monroe, and he came to the house and I played it for him. And I finished and he was kind of looking bewildered and sad. And I said, Ross, you know, he said, Rick, it's a great song, but it'll never get on the charts. It'll never go top 10. What kind of an artist do you want to be? And I looked at this guitar and I said, this piece that I'm about to play for you is the kind of thing that I know it's only really guitar players that dig it, but I think that when just regular folks go, oh, that's something the guitar players, I'll respect it. I don't understand it. And it just seems like just my friend Ian Thomas, I was out for lunch with him yesterday. You guys know Ian? And Ian, he says, Rick, you play more fucking chords in like 2 bars than I play my whole life. And it's true. It's like, and it's kind of a show-offy thing, but, you know, I am a bit of a ham bone. So, and a bit of a crybaby, apparently, too. So. Anyway, so, this is Gee Whiz. Yeah. I won't play the whole thing. I'll just play like 2 sections of it.
Sure.
Thank you.
See, the benefit of seeing this live is that not only do you hear it, but you see the like how truly enthused you are when you play this. Like you're into it. Your face is like, it's fantastic.
I find this kind of low light So I'm having a really hard time seeing the little dots. So I'm going, oh, shit. And if I put my glasses on, my glasses don't help. It's too dark. I need brighter light. If you had a flashlight, I could get you to be like a roadie. Oh, I have a good story. You want to hear a story? I did a tour. This was when I was on my own, after I'd left Triumph, where we opened for Nazareth on a run around Lake Ontario, sort of. And last night, we were playing a bar down around, like well under Grimsby. And the Nazareth guys would come off their bus, and they would just be getting hammered, like drinking. And this was a stage where it was up really, really high, and down off stage left, there was a kind of a lounge area where they were with their pints, and a tornado came ripping through, and it knocked out all the power. So imagine in this room if it just went like no windows, black, and the only thing that came on were the exit lights, so that you could have a sense of, okay, I'm in this room, and the place is really, really quiet, and what's going to happen, And the bar immediately goes and gets a bunch of candles, and they're putting them on everybody's table, and I said to my roadie guy, bring your mag light and bring me my acoustic and hold it above me, and I'll play some acoustic for the folks while we're waiting. So, I play a couple of guitar pieces, in the dark, and then power comes back on, and, So I go, okay, well, that's it, good night, folks, Nazareth's coming. So when I go off stage and go down to the side, the Nazareth guys are waiting. Now, and I don't know if you guys know, Nazareth are Scottish. So they've got really thick Scottish accents, like a really thick brogue. And the guy goes, hey, Rik! Fuck, man, that was fucking incredible what you just did. And I said, no, he said, no, man, that was incredible. He goes, wasn't that nubby? Wasn't that fucking great? He goes, oh, fucking, that was great. Fucking incredible. And then they go, you're a real fucking musician. Not us. We're just, and they look at each other, he goes, we're just Nazareth. Beautiful. Like, perfect. Nazareth.
One more story, if you don't mind. You told me this story the other day, but we've all heard of Journey, Steve Perry.
Yes.
Steve Perry, backstage, was it Texas Jam?
No.
Okay, but it was a festival in 79.
Yeah.
Approached you.
No, it wasn't 79. It was 83.
Oh.
And we were opening shows for them, and it was at the Rose Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And you folks haven't lived until you've seen the Rose Bowl full of California women all going, na, 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 na. Those guys owned the world. Yeah. And we were opening these shows. And I saw him backstage, and he came to me and he says, are you singing high D's in that song? I said, yeah. He goes, are you singing high E's in that other song? I went, yeah. And he goes, and like, just so you know, like a song like Never Surrender, it had like these, I have to wait for this to kick in. So it was in that key, E minor, and I had to sing. Those were the notes. And those are hard even for a soprano to sing, but my throat, I could hit those, I can't now. I can't anymore. And he was asking me, are you hitting that note? Because he only really liked to hit this one, which is still high, and I can't hit that one now either. But like the song "Hold On," it had that note in it, and I will take you. I can't hit it anymore. But and Steve was saying, "Holy shit, man! How do you hit those notes?" And I was saying, how do you hit the notes that you hit with such power and clarity? And, because my voice gets thin the higher I get, it starts to be something where, dogs around the neighborhood start to bark. But his voice was just so pure and beautiful. And he was in his prime then. And it was just so good. And the other thing about Journey was their background vocals were like pristine, like incredible, night after night. They'd just sing those hooks, and they would just be so shiny and big, and you just go, okay. I wish I was in that band.
That's actually a good segue into something you told me a little while ago about bands that approached you after you left Triumph.
Yeah.
Who were they?
The first one was Boston.
Boston.
Yeah, it was Tom Schultz.
Wow.
And I got the wrong idea. This lawyer calls me up and says, "Hey, Tom is looking for singer. Would you be interested in coming down?" And I went, "Hell yeah." I go, "The new album coming out?" He goes, "Yeah, new album, working on a new album." I go, and I'm just thinking, I'm going to get to write songs with Tom Schultz. This is going to be great. What a sweet publishing thing that will be. So I went down there and I was in his basement studio and he'd say, "Okay, can you sing this part over this thing? Oh, can you sing a harmony? Can you double that? Can you, all the shit that he probably did with Brad Delp?" And I went, "Yeah, I can do that." And I did all that stuff. And then we went out for dinner and it was great. It was just a lovely evening. I got on the plane the next day and flew home, and about 4 days later, I get the call from the lawyer. He goes, "Congratulations, you got the gig, and the tour is going to start." And I went, "Wait, what?" And he said, "Yeah, you're going to get hired to be in the touring band." And I went, "Well, I thought we were working on a record." He said, No, record's already done." He said, "He was just trying to see if you could sing those parts." And I went, "Oh, I'm not interested, thank you." And then I turned it down.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't want to go. I'd already been on the road in a rock band that was with, where I was essentially a sort of a glorified sideman.
Yeah.
I go, I don't want to do that again. Where I'm the singer, but I'm a sideman in the band. I'm not doing that again. So that was the first one. And the second one was Damn Yankees.
Yeah.
And that was Jack Blades, the bass player. I knew Tommy a little bit because I'd met him, Styx stuff. We'd been on some shows with them. But Jack phoned me, and I said, "Jack, hang on for a second. I think I've heard some rumors about this. Who have you already got in the band?" And he said, "Well, Tommy Shaw." And I went, "Oh, yeah, Tommy's great. I mean, fantastic. What do you need me for?" He goes, "Well, and I said, "Haven't you got Nugent playing in the band too?" He goes, Yeah, Ted's in." I go, "You've got Tommy Shaw and Ted Nugent, and you're asking me?" And I said, "I'm a Canuck, and you guys are damn Yankees, and you got enough guitar that you don't need me. So thanks, buddy, but I don't want to be in a band like that. Thank you." I passed. And then the last one was Asia.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, and that was the best because Wetton called me and talked to me, John Wetton. And then Carl Palmer, both. So Wetton calls me, and he's one of these fellas, with the really, really plummy sort of English accent, And he goes, "Oh, Rick, it would be fantastic to have you in the band, man. We all admire your guitar stylings, and we just think you would be a perfect fit." And I go, "John, I said, what do you got going?" He goes, "Well, we have a greatest hits album coming out, and we're going to play the Berlin Wall Festival, and then we're going to go on a series of European shows." I go, I don't think I want to, I don't want to be a sideman. I don't want to have to learn all those Steve Howe parts from the first Asia album. I go, pass. And then, like 2 days later, Carl Palmer calls. Now, he calls a bit more of a kind of he's this kind of guy, "Hi, Rick, come on, man, you got to join a band." I go, Carl, he goes, "No, man, you'd be fantastic. We got to get a guitar player and you're the man." I go, "No, Carl, I'm really honored and I'm chuffed. I think it's great, but pass." And I passed.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Nah.
Okay.
No, but I know that for folks that have not necessarily had notoriety on a large scale in your life, you think, well, why wouldn't you want more notoriety on a large scale? And I go, well, that wasn't why I got into it. I got into it because I love music, and it gave me a creative life. So, like to get asked to be in, they're not even really super groups because they were getting watered down. It wasn't like, it was Blind Faith in their heyday calling me and saying, "Hey, Rick, we really want you to join the band," It's like, these were after the fact kinds of things. And the proof of the pudding is whatever happened to those bands from that point on. They all kind of, So did I want to have my career going like, and be or be in somebody else's, oh, thanks. I can do this all by myself.
All right, that concludes the first episode. Stay tuned for the second one coming soon. This has been No Sleep Till Sudbury with Brent Jensen and my very special guest, Canadian music icon, Mr. Rik Emmett. Till next time, folks, take good care.
Brent Jensen is the best-selling author of No Sleep Till Sudbury, Leftover People, and All My Favorite People Are Broken. All titles available in stores and on Amazon worldwide.